better? You're close to Charles. It's 10th in it now. Is this weekend feel like things are coming together apart from the penalty?
Definitely. I definitely feel I'm really happy with the progress that we've made. Particularly like on my side of the garage, it's definitely been a lot more solid last week, but even more so this weekend. And been right there. It's within a tenth. So just got to keep working on it. It's seeing progress, and it's been amazing being here as a Ferrari driver. It's pretty. I can't even find the words for it, to be honest. It's the fans here are really beautiful. The energy since Wednesday, they've turned up in the thousands already for this event we had in the city in Milan, and then here when you leave the garage, when you get down to turn 1, you see them on the left and the right, and throughout the whole you see red. So I don't know what's possible tomorrow, but I've got to find my way to wiggle my way through.
Is the response everything you expected? Is it way more than you expected? Because we're hearing the cheers, we're hearing the anticipation before you went out in FP1, before you went out to qualifying today. Is it more than you ever imagined it would be?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you try to imagine what it's going to be like. You see others that have come and gone and had the experience. And I remember when Seb was here and watched him from the podium receiving. But it's different when you're in it, because then your interests are aligned. As where obviously another team is not necessarily the case. So but the passion and the intensity of that passion, I don't think I've seen that anywhere around the world. Maybe Brazil have that for the Brazilian team in football, but other than that I don't see it. Or maybe Argentina have that also, but otherwise I haven't seen it anywhere.
Hopefully you'll bring them something.
Can Lewis Hamilton load with the weight of Ferrari and return the glory? Or is he beginning to discover that not even his talent is enough? Today I tell you what nobody explained about their words after the classification in Monza, and why they are more important than they seem. Monza is not another circuit in the calendar. Monza is a symbol. It is a statement of identity for Ferrari and its tifosi. It is the only place in the world where a red car does not need to lead to be venerated, and where each 10th won in classification is held as if it were a victory on Sunday. And that is there, in that stage full of history, where Lewis Hamilton lived his first classification as a Ferrari pilot. From the first moment, the environment was different. The energy surrounding the paddock, the songs in the stands, the flags waving, everything seemed to anticipate something large. And in the first free training, the world stopped for a moment. Hamilton in front, leading the table with a 1:20,117, followed by his partner Charles Leclerc. A scene that evoked the glorious days of the rampant Cavallino. At that time, the dreams of millions seemed possible. The international press began talking about a redemption, a new golden chapter. The expectations, already very high since their signing, shot. But Formula One does not grant miracles by nostalgia. What came later was a brutal reminder that great dreams also have great obstacles. In the second training session, Ferrari made adjustments in the car settings. Settings that, in theory, should improve the braking balance and traction at the exit of the slower curves of the path. But those changes did not work. In fact, they worsened the general performance of SF25. Hamilton went from having a solid to an unstable car, especially in the second sector, where the front balance became unpredictable. Despite this, he managed to classify in 5th place, which under normal conditions would have been a solid base to fight the podium. But the penalty of 5 positions that dragged from Zandvoort for a lower technical infraction relegated it to the 10th grid position. A blow that not only moved him away from the leaders, but completely annulled the good work of the Q3. And this is where frustration became evident. Not so much because of the result itself, but for what I symbolized. Because in Monza, exit 10th is not just a strategic problem. It is almost a betrayal of Ferrari's soul. It is disappointing a crowd that does not expect perfection. Is to carry red, without being able to represent what that color means. And Hamilton knew it. Therefore, when it was heard on the radio saying, "I need more juice, I need more speed in some way," it was not a simple complaint. It was a confession. It was the moment when one of the most successful pilots in history recognized, without filters, that his talent was not enough to cover the shortcomings of the car. It was the voice of someone who is trying to transform a gigantic institution from within, and that begins to notice how difficult it is to move a mountain. Even if you are Lewis Hamilton. Ferrari arrived in Monza with a plan. And he was not an improvised. The Scuderia prepared an aerodynamic configuration specially designed for this circuit, the Temple of Speed. They knew that here, more than anywhere else in the calendar, straight efficiency could make the difference between fighting for pole or caught in the middle of the platoon. Therefore, the SF25 appeared with a low aerodynamic load configuration that rescued key components from the 2024 car, such as the flat cut rear spoiler and a low-profile beam wing. The logic behind this was clear: maximize peak speed without completely sacrifice stability. And at times it worked. In Monza's lines, the car flew. Telemetry revealed that Ferrari was among the best at maximum speed, even without resorting to the most aggressive motor maps. The combination between the soil design that takes full advantage of the soil effect, an optimized body to reduce air resistance, and the adoption of solutions already validated the previous year, gave SF25 a first-line performance in the straight sections. But as always in Formula One, everything is a balance. And what you earn on the one hand is usually lost by another. The car showed a very different face in the second and third sector of the circuit. Sectors where the passage through fast curve, constant side support, and braking stability become critics. That's where SF25 began to show cracks. The loss of aerodynamic load and curve, inevitable result of that low resistance configuration, made the car a difficult weapon to drive, especially in crosswind conditions and in the braking of variants such as the Ascari or the Raggia, where the rear axle of the Ferrari tended to decompose under load. Lewis Hamilton, with his vast experience, detected this instantly. And this is where one of the most revealing technical keys of the weekend enters: the pilot's feedback. In his words, the first session was positive, but by making changes in the tuning to seek even more efficiency, the car became less predictable. The phrase, P1 was a good session, P2 we made some changes and the car was a little worse, is not a simple anecdotal observation. It is a critical clue about a deeper problem. The SF25 operating window is narrow, and the margins to experiment are dangerously small. This implies that Ferrari still does not completely dominate the behavior of the car under different track, temperature, and load conditions. And that, for a team that aspires to win championships, is a structural problem. The SF25, although promising in general, has not yet reached a level of flexibility that allows it to perform to the maximum with different strategic approaches or driving styles. Something McLaren and Red Bull have learned to optimize through years of evolution and detailed understanding of their technical platforms. In addition, the fact that Hamilton had to ask for more juice, more speed in radio shows another aspect: lack of power or lack of efficiency in the delivery of that power. Although the Ferrari propeller is not the weakest of the grille, in stages where sustained acceleration and clean traction capacity are required at the exit of slow curves, the car seems to fall short. It is not a matter of pure peak speed, but of how that power is applied to the ground in a usably and consistent way. That is where, probably, Ferrari is losing those 2 or 3 tenths that make the difference between the first line and the third row. All this is aggravated when we consider that the aerodynamic package in Monza was not improvised. It was a strategic decision based on simulation data and wind tunnel analysis. That is, it was a calculated bet. And if such a well-planned bet does not end results, the most dangerous consequence is not the result of a single classification. It is the doubt that begins to grow inside the team about whether they really understand the integral behavior of the car. Monza was not just one more weekend for Hamilton. It was his true baptism as a Ferrarist. Because in Ferrari, one does not become a legend for what he earns, but for what he represents. And represented in Monza, in the midst of the heat of the tifosi, of the roar of the stands, of the echo of the engines under the centenary trees of that sacred circuit, it is an experience that redefines the career of any pilot. Hamilton's statements after the Monza classification are not simply a reaction to the result of a Saturday. They are a diagnosis, a direct window to the challenges facing Ferrari and, above all, to the steps that should be taken if they really want to return to the top. Because behind phrases such as, "I need more juice," or "the car was worse after the changes," realities that mark the immediate course of the team are hidden. The first of these realities is technical. The SF25 is not yet a car with predictable behavior in different conditions. Sensitivity to small adjustments makes it a machine that requires an almost surgical tuning to pay to the maximum. This is not a minor problem. It means that every time Ferrari reaches a new circuit, it starts almost from scratch. And that represents a brutal strategic disadvantage against teams such as McLaren or Red Bull, which have built more tolerant platforms with broader performance windows. The second reality is structural. Ferrari still does not master his own internal language. The fact that Hamilton stands out that in P1 the car was competitive, and that then the changes applied in P2 degraded it, suggests a disconnection between the team of engineers and the real track conditions. This disconnection not only slows decision-making, but generates insecurity in the pilots. When a change, however small, can turn a stable car into a nervous, trust is eroded. And in Formula One, where the differences are measured in thousands, a pilot without trust is a pilot who cannot push the limit. But the most revealing is in the general tone of Hamilton's statements. Because there is no resignation. There is demand. There is internal pressure. There are standards. Hamilton is not limited to pointing out what fails. He does it with clarity that sends a direct message to the team. And that message is this: Ferrari can no longer afford to be the team that almost achieves it. You need to move from promise to real threat, from nostalgic narrative to technical capacity. And this inevitably leads us to a fundamental question. Is Ferrari ready to follow Hamilton's rhythm? And that's where Hamilton's words act as a catalyst. Because beyond the car analysis, they are serving as a call for attention.